Hi, welcome back to the Road to Recovery podcast. My name is Ryan. I'm joined here, as always, with my boy, my brother. I don't know, a lot of acronyms. My dude, Tommy. Thank you for being here again. And we're really lucky. We're really lucky today because we're joined with somebody that I actually interviewed many months ago on my own channel, Marianne Reedy, and who is a Walls practitioner as well as a clinical nutritionist for several decades. Not to put a number on you, but she also has her own podcast, Nutrition Network Self-Care, which is on Spotify, and I'm sure all the other podcasting areas such as iTunes and stuff like that. So we'll talk more about that later. But today, I really wanted to dive into a few things surrounding detox and immunity, because that is a big topic of discussion, especially since I contracted the virus that shall not be named recently and had to kind of go through that whirlwind experience. And I'm coming out on the other end, thankfully, okay. But living in this modern environment, we're exposed to a lot of toxins that we either breathe, that we drink, that we eat, that we touch from cleaning products, etc., skincare. And so there's a big buzzword that people use in the health community, and it's detox. And I think it's often met with a negative connotation in the mainstream, scientific world, at least from what I've seen. So when you hear the word detox, Marianne, what does that mean to you? Does it mean optimizing your pathways? Could we kind of define that?
Sure.
It's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, generally, it's not alcohol and drug detoxification that we're talking about in, say, like the holistic community. I mean, it can be, but it's something gentler than that. And yes, it can have negative connotations, especially, there's people selling products that are like weight loss detox, lose 5 pounds overnight, flushing out your body. That's not, what I'm talking about. And I don't recommend that for people. I mean, we'd all love to have a magic pill or powder, to get rid of everything. But, and often that's just way too harsh, these products. So I don't recommend them. If somebody has something like high blood pressure, diabetes, gallstones, kidney stones, it can really aggravate that. But as you said, with the self-care, that's what I'm focusing on right now with my clients, is what we can do ourselves for self-care. And so we can do a more gentler detox. And it's really not complicated, and it can be done with just a few simple changes to your lifestyle and your diet. So the aim of the detox in my practice is to clear out the buildup of toxins that you're saying, like that we have from our food that we eat every day, what we're drinking, the air we're breathing, the clothing we're wearing, the carpets, that might be in our houses, whether they're old or they're new. So we want to get rid of heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, and petrochemicals. And we want to restore the liver function. I mean, the liver is the main organ of detoxification. We want to help our immune response so that if we do get sick with COVID or whatever, a common cold, we're more resilient. And also it helps with the nervous system and your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is where your lymph nodes, and we have the spleen, and that whole system can be helped also with gentle detoxification. And we want to be inhospitable host to any pathogen. It sounds like you were pretty inhospitable, because it didn't sound like you got a severe case and it didn't stick around that long. So that's really great. I'm sure everything that you've been doing up to this point really helped that. So it'll help reset our immune system. So again, that we won't become susceptible to viral and bacterial infections, and we be more resilient to them. So, and that's something everybody can do. Yeah. I mean, how did you feel, Ryan? Did you feel that everything you've been doing in your lifestyle helped you?
I would like to think that it aided in the severity of my case. I still had the most severe case out of everyone in my family that tested positive. Okay. Because my mom and my brother literally didn't feel like anything, and my dad had just slight, basically nasal congestion, which he kind of gets yearly anyways. So I don't think it was anything he was unfamiliar with feeling. My issue is I've never had the flu even. So I didn't really have anything to compare it to. And I haven't had a fever in years. So the fact that my fever went down in like a day, basically, by the time I actually got tested, which was a day after I started feeling sick, or was the earliest I could get in, my fever was actually already down. So that was good. And now I'm just kind of dealing with some lingering, some slight like tiredness,
Right.
and maybe like a little congestion, but it's nothing major. I never had any major escalation in anything. So I would definitely say that what I was doing helped mitigate things.
I know someone whose brother, he's in his 15th day of a fever, and it's gone up as high as 104.7.
Yeah, that's
15 days of
that's
that.
wild.
So yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So it's just, I mean, and it's really a, it's I mean, my mom probably has a really good immune system because she's a school teacher, as you probably know, working in the classroom as well, because I know you go in part-time. You gotta have a lot of bugs.
Petri dish, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what we actually spoke about in the last podcast. Is one of my friends actually passed away with COVID.
Oh.
He was 39 years old and he was really, really fit and healthy as well. It just seemed to really, it was his lungs and things that collapsed basically because of it. And I think what actually happened was he actually had COVID. He didn't get the ambulance, obviously, because his wife was going to phone the ambulance because he was really, really sick. He obviously delayed it because he thought there was a lot of people worse off than him. And then by the time they got him to the hospital, it basically all his lungs and everything had just filled with fluid and things. So
yeah,
yeah,
I think it's
and that's what we had spoken about in another interview. What was the cytokine storm? Which I'm not going to get into detail about, but that's really what happens. And so the body, and that's what we're looking at, with autoimmune issues too, like MS, where the body overreacts and it thinks it's helping itself, but it's not. And there's just this whole cascade of unfortunate events that happen until things just start shutting down, and it's going to go very quickly. And sometimes people don't even know that they might have some underlying condition that will be a problem once they get COVID, because it wouldn't show up otherwise. It wouldn't be exacerbated.
Well, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit briefly, is some of these underlying things that we may not know that we're being exposed to. So when it comes to the most common toxins in our environment, I'm actually really surprised that they're linking all sorts of different types of, whether it's neurodegenerative disease or autoimmune diseases, to all of these different some of them are just environmental exposure. They're realizing that when they completed the genome however many years ago, that we had a lot less genes in our body than they suspected was going to be the case for the complexity of the human being. We were expecting hundreds of thousands of genes, and we ended up having 20-something thousand genes. So then all of these other things, whether it's like our gut microbiome and all these things, are actually much more important in the chemical processes in our body. We're all just like starting to learn that stuff. But it's really interesting when it comes to the most common toxins in our environment. What are some that we should be wary of, and how can we avoid them?
The most common, like the heavy metal toxins, are arsenic, and that's something you can even find in a lot of rice. Some rice, depending on where it's coming from, has arsenic in it. Mercury, which we know is in things like tuna, but it's in other stuff too. Cadmium, bromine, and then lead. Now, there really isn't much lead paint on the market, but there's still lead in the environment, even though we're not really manufacturing leaded paint at this point. And so, when our bodies are overloaded with the waste products and toxins, we are more vulnerable to viruses and bacteria and other things like autoimmune diseases, like we're talking about, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the thyroid gland, asthma. There's at least 70 autoimmune diseases, lupus, MS, as I mentioned before, rheumatoid arthritis. So it's, the body does have a self-regulatory mechanism. So, we are able to heal generally and regulate things, even if we have a little bit of an unhealthy lifestyle. But when you start adding in all the stuff that we're talking about, in the air that we're breathing, the water we're drinking, the food, the food that we're eating, the clothing we're wearing, the whole environment, it's really too much. And so that's why we need to do something about it. And if we have foods like high fructose corn syrup, and just about any corn on the market right now has glyphosate in it. And we know that glyphosate, thanks to Monsanto, is really in everything. And it's a pesticide or herbicide, I guess, that is very toxic to the body. Unhealthy fats like the trans fats, the additives that we have, the food preservatives, and I find it frustrating that something will have food coloring in it, and I don't really care what color it is. It doesn't have to be pink, but they're adding this thing to make it more marketable. But all these things, these coal tar derivatives, they all need to be ridded. We need to rid them out of the body. So if we take it in, we need to get rid of it, and so that puts a stress on the body. It's doing that instead of maybe doing something else or getting rid of cancer cells. Instead, it's fighting these other things that we're putting into the body. So, and you did mention, the hair care products. Even if something says all natural, it probably has something in it that the body's going to have to, get rid of. So the Environmental Working Group, which is a great organization, they estimate that there's over 85,000 chemicals that are currently approved for use in the United States. So, and we know that we really can't avoid a lot of them, so that we're exposed to. So, so the organs of detoxification in the body is the liver, which is the main one. We have the kidneys, the colon, our lungs, our lymphatic system, which I mentioned before, with like your whole lymph nodes, and the skin. So the skin is actually one of the organs of detoxification. So if we're putting skincare products on it, especially, and I'm not saying men don't use them, but I think women probably use a lot more, especially with makeup. So you're really directly putting it onto your skin. It's going right in there. It's kind of clogging up your pores. So there is a buildup that it can directly damage the organ, or it can interfere in the proper functioning of the organ, which is going to cause some long-term problems like cancer, emphysema, and then even something that might be less obvious like pain. And I just want to give you a personal example of this.
That'd be great.
I was living in an apartment. I moved there before I knew it was going to become this active construction site. So they were building 300 condos and offices and an art center and a parking deck at the very end of the street. So they closed off the street only to local traffic. The street was like a half a block long, not very long. During the day, from like 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. was this line of dump trucks that were diesel fueled dump trucks, and they were idling. They were waiting for their turn to go be filled up with dirt that they were, excavating, digging up the soil, putting into these diesel trucks. They would go dump it, come back and get back in line. So this is going day in and day out, 6 days a week, for weeks. So one day I woke up and I literally had pain from my head to my toe, and I just didn't know what was going on. So luckily my doctor did agree with me that I probably had petrochemical poisoning from the exhaust of the diesel fuel of the trucks idling all day long like that. And so I had to, keep my windows closed, got an air purifier for every room, and then had to just make sure that my daily, detox program was pretty strong. And after that, I had to move. That was really,
I actually relate to that. When I was living in Los Angeles, I lived in a pretty busy area of Culver City, and we always had, whether it was like trash pickup trucks or moving trucks, we always had moving trucks, always parked in like the middle of the street right outside our complex constantly. And I always, you could smell the fumes from the cars all day. So I kind of relate to, I'm really glad I moved out of there, because and the other thing was our office was right next to the airport. So we had all the stuff coming off the airport which was kind of nasty as well.
Even noise pollution isn't great. You know, if you live near an airport, you hear the noise all the time.
Yeah, the noise is terrible.
You're used to it and you don't realize it, but doesn't mean it's not affecting you.
Yeah, no, exactly. All of those little things, and that's the thing with all of this stuff is it's kind of like it's not just one. I mean, people may have exacerbated reactions to things from a one-time use, but it's usually just build up over long periods of time that get you, and then completely throw off whoever you're working with, your medical professional, because it's such a small thing, and it's really low-grade inflammation that's getting you.
And they normally don't ask about that. I just, you know, I remember many years ago, I was working as a dietitian in a hospital, and I happened to be, I don't know, in someone's room, and I think I actually think it was near the ER, and she had just come in with an asthma attack, and the area that I lived in, there was right across the river was a chemical plant, and they made paint and a lot of other chemicals. And so we, like, downwind of it, you get all this smell and I guess fumes from it. So she said, you know, tonight there was just a really bad chemical smell in the air. Do you think that had anything to do with it? And he said, absolutely not. You know, asthma has nothing to do with that. You have asthma and it has nothing to do. And I'm, you know, this is 30 years ago I'm talking about, and I'm standing there thinking, of course it has something to do with that. You know, that like the chemicals in the air, she's got asthma, she's reacting. And he said, no, that had nothing to do with, I know we know more today, but it's taken a while to get to this point where, you know, we are part of the environment. And like with COVID, we can't do what we did to the planet and not expect all these things happening. You know, the viruses and global warming is causing this, and it's all related. And so I'm hoping that with what's happened now, this pandemic, that people realize that every single thing is related. So.
Yeah, I really hope so. That's the biggest thing is, and that's part of the frustration for many people that I'm sure you work with who have autoimmune disease, who work with their doctor, et cetera, because they just, it's not a universal recognition that everything is connected and everything is kind of causing everything in a way. So kind of a mini follow-up to that one. How can we avoid some of these things in our lives, these toxins, and if at all? Because some of it's unavoidable.
Right. Some of it is unavoidable. Well, so, you know, there was something when we were talking about, I was just thinking about testing, just to jump back a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Now, I mean, there are some online things that people can do, but you want to make sure you're working with somebody that can interpret those results when you have them, or also put you on some kind of protocol in case something does come out positive. So the functional medicine doctors that, you know, believe in the environment being part of, you know, our health, they generally have like 5 tests that they recommend, and that's the what's called OAT. It's the organic acid test, and toxic non-metal chemical profile, and then glyphosate, which I was just talking about before. That really can poison people. So there's a profile for glyphosate. Then the mycotox, which is for mold toxicity. Mold toxicity is huge, and that's really a big problem because you have the toxins that will come off of the mold, and some people will be not affected at all. Some people are just genetically really sensitive and can make them very sick. So mold is something else that you really need to look at in your environment. And then like hair analysis for, you know, metal toxicity, if it's something like we have mercury from fillings, which hopefully no one's getting amalgam fillings anymore. But so the company that a lot of them use is called the Great Plains Labs. But again, there are some things you can do yourself if you look online, but you really need to work with somebody to have those analyzed. And if there is something in there, then, I mean, I could talk about that in a little bit, like what you can do for that. But as far as just like gentle self-help detox that you can do yourself, there's something like when you wake up in the morning. I don't know if you're familiar with oil pulling.
I'm not
I've
super
heard of that.
familiar, but I've heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so it's a ancient Ayurvedic practice, so it's been around a long time. But it has antibacterial, antiviral, it's anti-inflammatory, antifungal. It has all these properties. So when you get up, before you drink anything at all, not even water, you can. And I actually have a bottle right here. I use coconut oil. That's really the best to use. It's almost tasteless, and you want to get like the virgin, cold pressed type. You don't want it to be refined. Coconut oil. You don't want to use something like soy or canola or even flax, because flax can go rancid pretty easily. So you just measure out a tablespoonful and swish it around your mouth. You don't want to swallow it. At the point when you first put it in, if you swallow it, it's fine. But after a while, you don't want to.
Yeah.
So you swish it around. You can start with like 5 minutes. The ideal time is 20. Most people would have to build up to that. And I mean, I do it. You don't want to dribble it out of your mouth onto your clothing, but you can, do it while you're getting dressed in the morning or whatever. Swish it around, spit it out. You can just spit it into the toilet if you want. I don't really recommend the sink because it'll clog your pipes, or like a jar or a can. But you want to swish it around for about 5 to 10 to 20 minutes, ideally. It's like this milky, like thin consistency when you've done it long enough. What it does is it really does draw stuff out of your system. So it'll draw like all the toxins that we're talking about. It does help to do that. And it whitens your teeth. It kills bacteria. So, it helps with things like halitosis. It lubricates your throat and your mouth and your lips. And it helps prevent gingivitis and cavities and bleeding gums. I've been doing it for years, and I really can tell you it really works. So that's just some little thing you can do that's very easy, and it's just part of your morning routine.
That's awesome.
I know a lot of people do like lemon water. Was that something that you would recommend?
Absolutely, yes. So in the morning, so that would be after the oil pulling. You do that, you rinse your mouth, and get rid of that. And then the other thing. So like a whole or half a lemon, squeeze it into some fresh water. And the other thing I recommend is a probiotic. So a probiotic you also want to take on an empty stomach, but you can take with the lemon water. The lemon water is not going to interfere with that. And the lemon it really helps to flush the liver. It really does flush out the liver. So it directly affects the liver. And there's just been so many good things written and experienced about it. I mean, it's even part of some people's either cancer prevention, or if they're on some sort of cancer therapy, natural therapy, they'll use the lemon juice. So that is actually, and then vitamin C, it's got bioflavonoids in it. It helps on all those levels. So yes, after the oil pulling, you can do that. Another thing is dry brush massage. It doesn't have to be done in the morning. You can do it whenever you want. You can do it either before or after a shower. Some people like to do it before because you slough off skin and they want to, rinse it. I like to do it after so my skin is clean when I'm doing it. But it's just, and I have one right here. It's so I look for where you have a detachable part of it's detachable, so you can use the hand brush, or just if you have the hard to reach spots, you can use the handle.
Awesome.
So this is something that you just start like your feet and you go up your body in a circular motion. And there are some parts of the body, especially with women, that are more sensitive, but you can still do those areas. You don't want to do it too rough. You don't want to break your skin. You're just trying to exfoliate. But what this does is the skin is one of our organs of detoxification. So it does slough off that top layer of skin, but it helps with circulation. It's everything, going. So it's detoxifying, it's rejuvenating, it's stimulating. So it's doing all of that. And you can just rinse the brush. You don't have to rinse it every time you use it, but like once in a while you can wash it. And we're talking about things in the environment right now. We're using so many antibacterial things and detoxify. This is making our immune system crazy. It really is. It's I know that we need to, use these hand sanitizers and all that kind of stuff, but it's affecting our immune system too. So we're keeping that stuff.
I was a little curious what your thoughts were on, because I know, especially right now, especially after my family got kind of sick, is I feel like my if you don't know, I'm living with my parents and my brother. We're all home with the COVID stuff. Anyways, but she's been like cleaning the bathrooms and like the showers and stuff constantly. Is that like overkill? Because I always think like you're just putting more chemicals that I am then going to lay down in or touch constantly. So
I know it's a catch-22. It really is.
Yeah.
But we are working overtime right now. Our immune systems. We are. I know. And there were some good summits on the virus prior to COVID. This is like, the summer before COVID hit. I was watching these viral summits that were talking about how, what we're doing to really increase viruses in the environment and how they're in our cells, and especially with something like autoimmunity, it's the body's kind of attacking the cell because the virus is in it. It's not attacking the cell because it's like, oh, I just want to go attack my nerve cell. It's that the viruses have infiltrated in the DNA, and that the body, the immune system, is going after that to try to help it. And there was one presenter, and I can't remember his name. He was a chiropractic doctor who feels like we got ourselves into a lot of the trouble we're in because of all the antibacterial stuff that's on the market. Like, he said it started with Dial soap. We started with this antibacterial soap in the 60s, and everything's gone crazy after that. And I don't disagree, and because I remember my father saying that, we ate dirt, and we didn't get sick because we had this immunity because we're outside eating dirt. And that's, I think there's something to that. So we're in this really sterile environment, and it's really creating havoc.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. It's really been fascinating, some of the stuff that I've been reading about. But then you have another like catch where it's like you're eating the dirt or whatever, and it's like, what have we been putting in our dirt? Like we've been putting all these agrochemicals in our plants that are now in the dirt, and it's like nowhere is safe.
Well, luckily I have an organic garden in the nice weather, and because I don't live, I live in New Jersey, I can't have a garden all year round. And I don't always wash everything off because it's my soil. I put it there. It's organic soil. It's got lots of worms in it and all kinds of good stuff. And I'll rinse it a little bit, but I probably do eat some of the dirt from it because I feel like that is helpful. But you're right. I mean, I don't want to be eating dirt from something I don't know. And the other thing about organic, if people can find it and afford it, it really is a good idea. The Environmental Working Group, they have the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So, and anybody, listening can get that handout on their website. Some of the stuff like strawberries, it's really important to have the organic form or not eat it. I mean, they're so sprayed that there's some things, because of the environment that I guess they're growing in, they're more vulnerable. But there's some food we could definitely get away with. We don't have to have the organic, but there's some you really, it's important to have that, because it's just another layer of stuff we're adding to our diet day in and day out, and we don't really know what's in it, especially from other countries. Like some pesticides are even more like they're legal, like there's no ban on them at all or any control. So I won't have something from another country that I think has no control over their pesticide use. Like, I mean, I know we do, but it's still terrible.
Yeah. It's also the environmental issue as well with that, because the pesticides and the insecticides run into the oceans, and it's creating ocean dead zones and things as well. So it's not just for health as well; it's a combination of everything.
Right.
And that's where it kind of goes back to it's really all of the environment around us has some problem, whether it's in the ocean, whether it's the heavy metals in the fish, or the microplastics in the fish, or the microplastics in everything. And so it's it's really more about doing the best you can with the situation we are given. Because it's easy to get anal for me and be like, oh man, I got to be perfect. Then I'm stressed out, which is lowering my immune system and all this other stuff. You just got to do the best you can, put that foot forward. And so
financially as well.
Financially, that's a huge one, and for a lot of people. So
yeah. But there are things we can do. Like, I don't want to feel helpless.
Right. No, of course.
Like in the morning, I was saying like a morning routine, or sometime during the day, even, you know what a rebounder is? Like the little round trampoline.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have one of those I have a big kitchen, and if you want to watch a video or you want to listen to music, whatever, you can jump up and down on that. That's something really easy to do. And that's part of the lymphatic system, where you're kind of doing this tune up to your body by just 10 minutes, jumping up and down on it, nothing crazy. So that, I think then that makes you feel better, right? Your circulation of your blood is going, you're just feeling better. To sit around feeling helpless, not that you should say, oh my God, if I didn't do the rebounder, my day is ruined. But if these things become part of your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth, eating food, these will just be part of it. And then you don't have to stress out. Nothing's long, 5-10 minutes, and it can make a big difference.
No, you're totally right. And that's something that that you were going to talk about a little more with the rebounder is doing a light exercise routine in the morning can be helpful, just to get blood moving through your body and cycling things through.
Yes. So, because we want to help empower our natural detoxification system that we were born with. We have it. We may as well enhance it and work with it instead of against it.
I know something that I found helpful that you also mentioned in some of the notes you sent me is doing a simple like a foot soak. I do a lot of Epsom salt kind of bath stuff, and I find that even beyond a detox standpoint, but just very de-stressing, and it just kind of brings you down.
Well, and magnesium, Epsom salt, magnesium, calms us. And magnesium is really important for men. It's really important this is a whole other topic, but it's really important for heart health with men. So no matter where I am, I'm always like pushing magnesium on men. Because you can actually have a heart attack from low magnesium, because they have the electrical pulses going across the heart, and if something interrupts that, like low magnesium, somebody can just drop dead of a heart attack. And so it's a simple thing: take magnesium. So
that's actually something I was actually telling Ryan the other day there, because he's been suffering with basically a kind of cardiac arrhythmia type thing, and I said to him, it's possible that it's magnesium or maybe potassium or phosphate, probably one of those three.
And the problem with that type of stuff is everybody has kind of a unique balance, and it's like and it's really easy to throw off the balance by getting too much of the one thing and not enough of the other thing. And I'm just like, I know it's like something like that, but
it's great when you can get stuff in your diet, from the food, but on some things we need more than that. But if you do have a really great diet, it's not as important to take supplements. But again, we're talking about the environment that's really stressing us. So therefore we need, so let's just even say minerals as far as the heavy metal toxicity. Calcium and zinc, they'll compete with cadmium. They have the same, what's called a valence, like have their activity in the body. So they're competing with each other. So if you have cadmium exposure, it's going to compete with the calcium and the zinc. So, and the other thing is, it helps if you're trying to like chelate these things out of your body, like a claw, like hook onto the cadmium or some other heavy metal and get it out. You need those macro minerals like calcium, zinc, magnesium in order to do that. So that is part of making sure. So again, like the RDA, it's a recommended daily allowance, is really just to keep these subclinical deficiency symptoms like scurvy from, popping up. 65 to 90 milligrams of vitamin C. Well, you won't get scurvy. Well, that's great. But if you do more, then you have other pathways that'll be enhanced, and in your immune system, and and that's another thing with well, I don't jump ahead, but with COVID is vitamin C. It's really it's really just highlighting it, which has been fabulous, because we all knew about it, and Linus Pauling certainly made it popular, eons ago, but they're actually using it, with COVID. So, and getting great results. And so that's being highlighted right now. So I'm just
maybe we can talk about, before we get to the COVID thing, we can kind of transition into it slowly by talking about more about the diet and what we can do now to help amplify our pathways to detox and stuff like that.
And so we're talking about the foot soak. I just wanted to add
yes,
I do that also. And I have a rosemary bush. You don't have to have a rosemary bush, but I have a rosemary bush in my kitchen. So I just cut off some sprigs of that, put it in 10 cups of water, boil it, let it go to room temperature, throw that in my foot bath, and the rosemary will infuse. I take the actual stems out, but it infuses into the water, and that's very detoxifying herb. And then I do throw in about a cup of food grade hydrogen peroxide, because that is also helpful. Some apple cider vinegar, and the Epsom salts like you were talking about, and then a fresh lemon, because that can go in through your feet as well. I do that, and I actually put the lemon peels and everything in there, throw everything in, because it's, your feet you're soaking, so it's fine. And then if somebody has essential oils, are really helpful. So if somebody has something like bergamot or lavender, about 8 drops of that, 20 minutes, and read a book or something. So for the liver, essential oils are very popular right now, with having diffusers. I have one probably in every room. But there's certain essential oils that are good for the liver. There's lemon. So if you want to put lemon in one, and you could use a combination of these at the same time. Mandarin is good. Peppermint is good. Chamomile, rosemary, and sage. Those are all really good ones for the liver. And if you're trying to work for the lungs, because we want, to breathe out stuff, we want to get rid of toxins through our lungs, eucalyptus is really nice. Peppermint is also good for that, and rosemary is good for that as well. So that's another easy thing, and it smells good. It makes your house smell good, or your office, or wherever you are. And you could put a little essential oil on like your wrist or your neck, and it can have direct absorption to there. So, but as far as diet for optimal health, for immunity, detoxification, there are some foods that are like we call liver-friendly foods, and so they're basically what we're eating if we're following something like an autoimmune type protocol. Would be berries, and again, the ones that are really sprayed, it's best to get organically, and it's pretty easy to get organic berries now. Whether I usually buy them frozen and put them in my smoothie. Nuts, fatty fish like salmon, those are good. And all the cruciferous vegetables, there's a lot of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, cauliflower, those are all, Brussels sprouts, those are all cruciferous. Garlic, I think we've known that for a long time, that really helps to boost the immune system. We think that's the secret in, grandma's chicken soup. And then flax and chia seeds are also very helpful. And again, as much organic food as you can find and you can afford. So now we talked about the lemon juice already. So that is something I definitely recommend. And then just water, some kind of clean water. And there's herbs. Now, there's a lot of herb tinctures on the market, but if somebody doesn't really know, what they're doing, if they're working with somebody, great. If someone's an herbalist, because I'm not an herbalist. I really respect people that study that, know it. But I think a lot of people think they know, but they don't. So the best way is probably teas. If you're not, if you don't know, if you're not an herbalist or working with somebody. So there's some good teas like red clover is very good for the like liver detox. Dandelion, burdock root, milk thistle's one, nettles, licorice root, fennel, and ginger. I just think ginger is good for everything. So I love ginger. Love it. Ginger's the best.
Absolutely.
And turmeric, of course, is very popular. So they help to detox the body of heavy metals. Those specifically do.
Interesting.
And then artichoke leaf extract. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not really.
Well,
Okay. So it's been shown to be specifically a liver detox. But what I think is just so interesting is that it actually promotes new growth, new liver growth. So that's pretty important. It's not just flushing, it's actually helping for us to regenerate and to build new liver growth. So that's artichoke leaf extract.
Interesting.
So yeah. And then the other thing is like limiting alcohol. I'm not saying people can't drink, but it is a direct liver toxin and also a neurotoxin. So it's one of the things if you're trying to stay healthy right now during a pandemic, you don't want to overdo it.
So I'm kind of curious with these like herbs and stuff. I can see for someone like me, it'd be easy to simply overdo them. Is there like a good kind of easy protocol for someone out there that they could follow, or just like a good rule of thumb when it comes to like using herbs and essential oils and stuff?
I'm going to tell you, it's somebody that he was an herbalist that I went to many years ago, and he's really just a master herbalist. He's recently come out with a book, finally, after I think he's been in practice like 35 years. His name is David Winston, and I really recommend looking at David Winston's. I've gone to workshops with him. So if you're following somebody's, specific protocol for certain things, like I like his book. So I think he's good. But otherwise, that's why I was saying stick with the teas, because those are really mild. You're not going to overdo it with that. You could really drink red clover tea all day, and it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, like you mentioned, ginger earlier. I'm a huge fan of ginger tea.
Well, ginger's great for everything. I mean, they use it for vertigo. I mean, it's just great.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there was ginger and ginger ale when I was a kid, but I know whenever I got sick, if I had ginger ale, I felt better. It's probably corn syrup, but whatever, just mentally, I just like, oh, ginger ale. And I really just, it settled my stomach or whatever if I was sick when I was a kid. But, and when we talked before about the probiotics, that's, it's just super important. And there's so much information on that right now between, the gut and the brain and your anxiety, and it can help with all those things. And that our health really does begin in the gut. And, so it's not, and so there's other things called spores. So so that's coming out now too. There's some companies that are really feeling that the spores are helpful because it's not killed by your gastric juices, because probiotics can be, destroyed to some degree. So if you have the spore, which then sets up, I guess, the better environment for the probiotic to thrive. So there's some really interesting companies coming out with that and some interesting work on that. But that's really it does. You are what you absorb, right? So it's not just what you're eating; it's what you're able to absorb. And if that's thrown off, if your gut's not working properly, then nothing else is going to really work properly. So I don't feel like it's over exaggerated when they're saying that, our health begins in the gut. It really does.
No, I mean, they're finding that more and more, and they're linking it to, I swear, I'll even in scientific journals now, when I just throw on my Google, they come up and I'll just see like, oh, they're linking gut health with Alzheimer's and with Parkinson's. And it's this whole interbody connection we got going on. And the more research that they're going to do into the gut microbiome, I'm sure they're going to find that the DNA and those gut microbes that make up for the rest of the DNA that we thought we were going to find is going to be really impactful on all this chronic disease and autoimmunity that's going on in the world right now.
That's such a great point. That's so great. Yeah.
It's really fascinating. So
it is.
And now I know we kind of talked about diet and stuff like that, but maybe we can kind of go into specific supplements and stuff like that when it comes to COVID-19 prevention and or recovery, as I'm going through right now, because there's some really interesting stuff on that the Institute of Functional Medicine has come out with recently, and I'm sure you would like to fill us in on.
Right. Yeah. Because I think that you and I discussed some frustration with people where, like the media specifically, not focusing on this. You know, I can listen to CNN and MSNBC all day. All they're talking about is COVID, which is fine, but they're talking about a vaccine. Not once have I heard since March, when this all started, anything about diet or what people could do to help themselves while they're waiting for a vaccine. And it's so frustrating. It makes me like insane, actually. So, you know, I see people on social media, they're posting some like really unhealthy meal that they just made, and you know, their glass of whiskey, and they smoke cigarettes and whatever. They're not exercising, they're staying home because they're afraid, but they're pro-science. You know, I'm pro-science, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm pro-science. Well, okay, but what are you doing, like, as far as your diet and supplements, which we're going to talk about, any kind of mindfulness practice, taking responsibility for your own health? We're just putting it all in like Dr. Fauci's hands and your healthcare practitioner, instead of, to me, that's bad science, and it's actually crippling our healthcare system. Well, behaviors drive disease, right? So bad behaviors drive disease. So when we have good behavior, we're going to, and I don't mean to be good and bad, you know, evil or whatever, but it's just, we're going to reverse disease when we do the opposite. So I feel like people need to take responsibility and do something for themselves, and not put everything into the healthcare system's hands. Yeah. So on that note, vitamin A, I got off my little soapbox, vitamin A, but in the retinol form, okay? It doesn't mean fat-soluble, water-soluble, because you can have fat-soluble forms of beta-carotene and water-soluble forms of vitamin A, but it's the vitamin A retinol form. We don't want the beta-carotene form because it's a precursor, so it has to be made into vitamin A. So you want the, it's usually from like fish, something like that. Now, if somebody's a vegan, it's fine. Just, do the beta carotene. That's fine. Or if you can get it from, I'm not sure if I don't think there's a source of it that's vegan. But anyway, about 10,000 to 15 international units a day. Now, I don't know anybody out there that's listening, so people really need to check with, they have a nutritionist or a doctor that they're working with before they, start any program. But
supplementing with vitamin A and stuff like that, you can go too far with supplementing vitamin A.
You can, but 10,000 to 15 international units.
That's pretty safe.
It's not that much. Now, an international unit, that's a measure of biological activity. So it's going to be different for different substances. But that's how the fat soluble, the fat soluble ones like vitamin A, vitamin D, those are all international units. So that's the recommendation that I've heard, functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, and myself give. So vitamin C, it's, I'm going to be conservative, 500 milligrams twice a day. It is water soluble, so it's good to spread it out so that if you take it in the morning, you take it in the evening. The other thing is we don't make it. So we have to get it in our diet, our fruits and vegetables, or, supplement it. We don't manufacture it ourselves. So it is essential. There is a liposomal form of vitamin C. So it's a fat soluble form, which is more utilizable in the system. And it contains phospholipids, and that's why it's fat soluble. It's much more expensive, but I think it's in the end worthwhile if people can afford it, to take the liposomal form of it. And now if you do steam or cook your fruits and vegetables, you are going to lose some vitamin C in that process. So, it is good to have some fruits and vegetables raw, so to maintain the vitamin C in them. And the other thing, though, with vitamin C is I like a complex, because bioflavonoids are really important too, and those come natural. Like if you eat an orange, you cut open the orange, you have all that white, pulpy stuff. That's where the bioflavonoids are. So when we're eating something natural, we don't even know exactly what's in there. There's probably a lot more there than we can get out of a bottle of supplements. So both is, really recommended. I want to read something to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. The vitamin C stuff's really interesting, especially with COVID.
So according to the New York Post, medical teams at Northwell Health facilities immediately gave affected patients 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C intravenously. So it was IV. The same amount was then re-administered 3 or 4 times a day. Each dose represents over 16 times the recommended daily allowance, which is only 65 to 90 milligrams, which we mentioned before. Dr. Andrew Weber, a critical care specialist affiliated to Northwell Health Center, told the newspaper, quote, "The vitamin C is administered in addition to such medicines as the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine, the antibiotic azithromycin, various biologics, and blood thinners. The patients who received vitamin C did significantly better than those who did not get vitamin C. It helps a tremendous amount, but it is not highlighted because it's not a sexy drug. The revelations come as a recent study found vitamin C could shorten the length of a stay in the intensive care unit. In 3 trials in which patients needed mechanical ventilation, so they needed to go on ventilators for over 24 hours, vitamin C shortened the duration of mechanical ventilation by 18.2%.
Wow.
That is so significant, so statistically significant. Yeah. And we're not hearing about this really. I didn't hear CNN tell me anything about that, you know? And also with the vitamin D, they found that people who had normal or good levels of vitamin D prior to getting COVID didn't get really sick. That's significant too, but I don't hear about this.
That's actually one thing I was actually going to bring up, because the NHS here in the UK, they've been advocating a lot for vitamin D, because they're saying that people that get good vitamin D levels have been found to not get as sick with the coronavirus. So
that's good. They're highlighting it there.
Yeah, they're absolutely. Yeah, they've been pushing it for the last since it started, really.
Okay.
Round about April.
Have you heard anything here about it? Vitamin D for COVID?
I haven't heard anything. Although it is interesting. I read somewhere that they were actually getting ready to, and this is probably a month ago, getting ready to actually ship out vitamin D to people in the UK. They were like giving it out for free.
Okay.
I was like amazed. That's awesome.
And the thing with vitamin D, it's, they measure the 25-hydroxy vitamin D in a blood test. I think it's worthwhile if someone's going to get their cholesterol checked or, whatever, their routine blood work, just throw that in, because anything under 20, I think it's nano, I forget what the measurement is, but anything under 20, you're really at risk. 20 and above, they found that people did so much better. Now, when the best is between 40 and 60, to have that measurement when you get the blood work done. Anything under 20 really needs to be, addressed probably with a prescription level of vitamin D just to get it up. But you really want to try to maintain it between 40 and 60. And with that, you need to be taking about 15,000 international units a day to do that. If you're fine when you get the blood work done, then you could take 3,000, international units. I recommend getting it done whenever you get your blood work, so you can take a look at it to see if it's low, whatever you're doing, if it's helping it or not. In some people, it creeps up so slowly, especially with autoimmune disease. It's almost never that it's normal with somebody who's like a relapse or, having problems with the autoimmune issue. It's always low. I really can say that. It's so that's another important thing. So it's not just for strong bones. Now we know it's for immunity. That's why also, if you can walk outside and as part of your exercise routine, even if it's like walking your dog or whatever, because the UV rays, the cholesterol in our system helps make the vitamin D, but on our skin when the UV rays hit it. And that's another way. I think all this hunkering down and sheltering in place, their vitamin D levels are going down, and it's making everything worse. It's the opposite of what we should be doing. So, and then zinc is important too. That's really important for manufacturing the white blood cells and the other cells for our immune system. So about 15 to 30 milligrams a day of zinc is necessary. Selenium is also extremely important, but that is something you can't take too much of selenium. You can actually get that. I do worry about toxicity with. So like I was talking about, you mentioned the Wall's protocol that I'm certified in. As part of that protocol, we just recommend 3 Brazil nuts a day. That 3 Brazil nuts has enough selenium in it to really get your daily allowance. But if it's in something like you're taking some kind of multi-mineral or multivitamin mineral formula, if it's a very low amount, in the micrograms, it's probably okay, to take that, but you don't want to overdo selenium. The other ones we're talking about milligrams. With selenium, we're talking about micrograms, so it's a lot smaller than that.
And I've actually overdone it on selenium at the very beginning of my healing journey. I've like found out I was like eating way above the 400 microgram like RDA, so I had to bring that down.
What was your symptoms? How did you know?
Well, I mean, honestly, I didn't know until I plugged it into my chronometer to find out what I was actually like consuming. And it might have been neurological symptoms. Like some of my neurological symptoms could be from that, but I don't know because I just have too many factors. But I'm just saying that, yeah, it is possible to go over on it.
It can be really, really easy with things like if you're eating a lot of sardines or oysters and shrimp and things like that.
I was eating a ton of tuna. So not only was I had mercury and I was like, but yeah. So yeah, selenium's just one to watch. You don't need too much.
Right. And then there's herbs, which I think everybody knows, like echinacea is one of them, astragalus. And then the mushrooms, there's a lot about mushrooms now. The lion's mane, we have turkey tail, reishi mushrooms. Those are all good. And I like throwing those in a salad or maybe a stir fry. You don't have to take them in a tablet or pill form. You can get those naturally, and those are really good for you. And then now elderberry, that's have you heard much about elderberry in the UK?
Not a great deal. I know a little bit about it, but yeah, if you give us a lot of information,
especially like in the health, like alternative health field, because that's something that Native Americans used, and they used to use that for treating things like cold and symptoms. So that's been in the beginning. There was a little question whether that would help increase the cytokine storm, but I think people backed off of that. It's pretty mild, and so elderberry syrup, you don't have. I mean, I was taking it every day. I stopped doing it. I guess if I did feel some symptoms coming on, I would do it again. But that is a nice natural thing you can do. And then adaptogens, which just really help the body. And there's a crossover with some herbs that are for the immune system and for other things. They're also in the adaptogen category, like ashwagandha, holy basil. Rishi's another one, Siberian ginseng, and then this shilajit. I don't know if I'm spelling it right. Shilajit extract. This is something that's really coming up. I don't know. For in a lot of.
I'm trying to remember the other one that I've heard of, ginkgo biloba. I think it is.
Yeah, that one I've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. Ginkgo biloba is great for memory. I mean, that was studied a lot with dementia. So that's really good. It helps with increasing like blood flow to the brain. So so these are all things that just help the body stay in balance. So it's all really important.
I do know there was one supplement in particular that we were going to talk about because it's kind of an interesting area of some study, but it's NAC, N-acetylcysteine.
Right.
I believe. And I believe you were going to talk about some of that because that's something that when I spoke to Walls recently, when I was like, oh, I might have COVID, she was like, yeah, take quercetin and NAC. Make sure to get NAC in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it really has put a nice spotlight on it. This work's been going on for that for a while. And I be honest with you, I'm very familiar with glutathione, very familiar with that, but not so much the NAC. And what the N-acetylcysteine is a precursor. So glutathione is very vulnerable to the digestive system, like the juices will kill it. So NAC is a precursor to glutathione. It's not susceptible like glutathione is, so it will make it glutathione in the body. So that's why it's really exciting to me, and really that you don't have to get it. Because glutathione, it's more effective if it's liposomal form, like we said with the vitamin C, or intravenously. It's been used. But so NAC is a powerful antioxidant, just like glutathione, and so it's necessary for the production of glutathione. And they were finding, before it was being used for COVID. And let me just tell you before I forget, with the COVID, it's 600 milligrams twice a day. That is really it can be preventative, or if you do have it, 600 milligrams. And that does not seem to be toxic, because they were using it for, prior to this, acetaminophen toxicity, like somebody swallowed a bottle of Tylenol or took too much Tylenol or acetaminophen, which is very toxic to the liver. They were treating it with N-acetylcysteine, and with good results. And then the other thing is it seems to help be preventive for certain types of colon cancer. If people have certain colon polyps, it seems to be helpful in interfering in that becoming colon cancer. So that's another really good thing. And one, Dr. Perlmutter, David Perlmutter, who you may have heard of, he's a neurologist in Florida, and he's done a lot with functional medicine. And he has some really interesting videos on his website where he did a push, which is, it is intravenous, but it's just like in a syringe, and you just kind of push through 150 to, I don't really know the milligrams he was using. I know that it starts at like 150. He might have been using more than that, of glutathione with Parkinson's patients. Before and after, that will just blow your mind. It's really, that's how important the glutathione is as a master antioxidant. So he does a lot of work with that with Parkinson's. The other thing now that they're researching is lupus. It seems to have a direct effect on the lymphocytes, which happen, I guess they're attacking the body, whatever, in lupus, and it's been very effective there. It's actually stopped it.
That's great.
So, yeah. So pretty exciting.
My wife's mother actually died with lupus, and recently they actually think that my wife is probably developing lupus because she's getting a lot of bruising all over her body that they don't know where it's coming from. So
yeah, well, you have like a T cell dysfunction, with lupus, and then it can really, attack different organs. Bruising can be several different things. It doesn't really have to be that, but it's possible. Yeah, I mean, does she have like aches and pains and all that too?
Yeah, she's got a lot of aches and pains. Obviously, she's had ovarian cancer in the past as well. That's part of it, but lately she's getting a lot of problems with her liver. Basically, the liver's not functioning properly, and they're trying to figure out what's going on there. So it's maybe all correlated. It's maybe part of that. I don't know.
All right, so you should really check out. I mean, even if it's not, like NAC is, can be used regardless, because it's there's something called mTOR in the in the lymphocytes, and it blocks that. So it's very helpful with that. So yeah, so it's a lot of good things are going to come out of something like a pandemic, right? There's light in the dark.
The one thing that I like to do, I'm very fortunate. I had been doing infrared sauna for part of my detox program, and I would do that every day because I just have a local place that I go to that does it. But they also do IV therapy there. And one thing that I had done in the past, especially when I had traveled, was I did a high dose vitamin C IV with a high dose intravenous glutathione. And I was like, man, I wish I could have done that when I got sick. So I'll have to do that when I'm not contagious anymore in a few days. But,
I was going to the gym that I belonged to had the infrared, sauna, and I was doing that, and I haven't been there since March. So I want to buy just like the tabletop one that you can, expose yourself to, or they do have the more expensive that, you sit in. Because I do think that's important for sure. Definitely.
Well, especially the light stuff, like just getting sunlight, like it's just good for your circadian rhythm. And like, I've noticed that in like the last basically 10 days that we've all kind of been in the house and haven't done anything. It's like, I went outside yesterday just in the car. So I wasn't like out and about really.
Right.
And I was just like, just seeing the sun just gave me energy.
That's never very easy for me when I stay in Scotland because we get no sun.
yeah, that's hard. But I really appreciate, Marianne, you coming on and going into depth on all this stuff. We'll have to do another episode in the future. I know we've been emailing back and forth on some other topics.
So much stuff out there we can talk about, Ryan.
Yeah,
All day long. We could go
like
all day
you're
long.
talking about with the light, like seasonal affective disorder and what people
Yeah.
can do, you know, or in Scotland, if you
That's
have a
it.
lot of, you know, there's so much people can do.
We will definitely,
It's real, you know, people, it really does affect people. It's not in their head.
no,
It is in their head, but
I think if there's one thing I want people to go away with from this is that if you're experiencing something, and if any of these things that we mentioned, whether toxin exposure kind of resonates with something that you can relate to, don't count it out. I know it's easy because I myself am kind of a hypochondriac. That it's just sometimes you gotta weigh in everything when you don't know what's going on, especially if you're experiencing stuff. So again, Marianne, thank you for coming on. Everybody can find her on her podcast. I'll let you drop the information. Where can everyone find you?
okay. Where do I do that?
Oh, well, I'll put it in the description of the video, but you can talk about it right now.
Oh, okay, sure. So my website is nutritionnetwork.net, and the podcast is Nutrition Network Self-Care, and I do it on Anchor, but you know, most people listen to it on Spotify. And if anybody wants to call me, and the other thing I don't have any connection to any companies with air purification or water purification, but if anybody wants to call me and just ask, because I have so much experience with this, a question about anything, you can either email me at MAREIDY2@verizon.net. So it's MAREIDY@verizon2@verizon.net, or 973-650-7711. And I'm really happy to give out like company names and all that I've used that I think are good. And there's all, you know, ranges of prices that whatever people can afford. There's really something out there. I just want to say, Ryan, though, sometimes when you have some kind of underlying, especially if it's autoimmune, it does create hypochondria, because we don't know like what it is. So it's just you searching and trying to figure things out. And, you know, and depending on someone's personality, it can, you know, get more crazy than others, but it's natural, right? Because you really want to know.
Totally natural, yeah.
And inquiring minds want to know. Like if you're a critical thinker, you're like, you know, there's only so many things it could be, and so let's figure this out. It's like a puzzle, and that's why I love working with people, because I feel like a detective, and a lot of times I get it right. And they've been through so many doctors, and they've had surgeries and this and that, and it's like something maybe simpler than all that, or something that connects everything, where they're separately. You know, you want to look at it together, because we're.
These are complex. Autoimmune disease and complex illness are complex, but at the root, it's usually pretty simple. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday where a lot of the thinking now is a lot of these different neurodegenerative illnesses all could stem from a very similar initial problem. And
it's not uncommon for people to have more than one autoimmune disease or issue disorder. But again, when you treat the one, it helps them all, right? It's not like, you know, if you have MS and you have celiac, like you treat one, you're not going to help the other one, but you are. So, so they are connected. And it's usually people have about three, not just one, but three, and they don't realize it, and they think everything's, you know, separate. So, yeah.
But we'll definitely do a follow-up, especially on the seasonal disorder. That's interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
Tommy, I know you're dealing with that over in Scotland. So.
Definitely.
But thank you again. We'll have all those links in the description below, and we'll do it again.
Thank you, Ryan. Bye. Thank you. Bye.